Have you ever wondered what it takes to stare down an army 5 times the size of your own and not just survive, but win a crushing victory? It sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel, but in 331 BC, one man did exactly that. Today, we're diving deep into the Battle of Gaugamela, where Alexander the Great, with just 47,000 soldiers, faced the might of the Persian Empire and its colossal army of over 250,000 men. This wasn't just a battle, it was a masterclass in strategy, courage, and sheer audacity that would reshape the ancient world forever. How did he do it? How did a young Macedonian king outsmart the most powerful empire on earth? Stick around, because we're about to break down, step by step, the military genius that allowed Alexander to annihilate the largest army in history. You won't want to miss this. Let's set the stage. The year is 331 BC. Alexander had already been campaigning in Persia for 2 years. He'd won stunning victories at the Granicus River and Issus, but the Persian king, Darius III, was far from defeated. He had spent the last 2 years gathering the full military might of his vast empire. From every corner, soldiers marched: Scythian cavalry, Indian war elephants, Greek mercenaries, and the legendary Persian immortals. Darius chose his battlefield carefully, a wide, flat plain near Gaugamela. He even had his engineers level the ground to give his scythed-chariots the perfect surface to charge. He was determined to use his overwhelming numbers to crush Alexander once and for all. On the other side, you have Alexander's army, small but battle-hardened and fiercely loyal. They were a professional fighting force, the best of their time. As they crested the hills and saw the endless sea of the Persian army stretching out before them, even these veteran soldiers must have felt a chill. The odds were impossible. But Alexander had a plan so daring, so unconventional, it would become one of the most studied military strategies in history. The night before the battle, Alexander's generals were understandably nervous. They urged him to launch a surprise night attack, hoping to sow chaos in the massive Persian camp. But Alexander refused. He famously said, "I will not steal my victory." He wanted to defeat Darius in a straight, open fight to prove that his army's skill and strategy were superior to sheer numbers. He was so confident that he slept soundly that night, while Darius, fearing a night attack that never came, kept his entire army awake and on high alert. By the time the sun rose, the Persians were already tired. Alexander, on the other hand, ensured his men were well fed and well rested. The psychological game had already begun, and Alexander was winning. As the Macedonian army prepared for battle, Alexander delivered a rousing speech. He reminded them of their past victories, of their destiny, and of the glory that awaited them. His confidence was infectious. His men, who would follow him to the ends of the earth, were ready to face the impossible. Now for the brilliant strategy. Alexander knew he couldn't match the Persians head-on. Their line was so wide, it would simply swallow his army whole. So, he did something completely unexpected. He arranged his army in a strange, oblique formation, with his right flank advanced much further than his left. His elite companion cavalry, which he would lead personally, was on this advanced right wing. His left flank, commanded by his most trusted general, Parmenion, was deliberately held back, or refused. It was a lopsided setup designed to bait the Persians. Behind his main line, he created a second line of infantry at an angle, ready to turn and face any flanking maneuvers. This essentially created a box-like formation, a defense against being surrounded. It was a complex, flexible strategy that required incredible discipline from his troops. Alexander wasn't just planning to fight, he was planning to orchestrate a masterpiece of chaos. As the battle began, Alexander didn't charge straight ahead. Instead, he started moving his entire army to the right, marching parallel to the Persian line. This was a bizarre move. It looked like he was trying to march right off the edge of the battlefield. Darius, confused and anxious, saw Alexander moving away from the smooth ground he had prepared for his chariots. Fearing Alexander was trying to find rougher terrain to neutralize them, Darius ordered his own left flank cavalry to ride out and stop Alexander's sideways march. This was the first mistake Alexander had been waiting for. As the Persian cavalry rode out to intercept him, a gap began to open in the Persian front line, between their cavalry and their center infantry. This was exactly what Alexander wanted. He then sent in his own light troops to engage the Persian cavalry, creating a chaotic fight on the far right flank. Darius, growing more impatient, then unleashed his ultimate weapon, the scythed chariots. But Alexander was ready. He had trained his infantry for this. On his command, the front ranks opened up, creating channels for the chariots to pass through harmlessly. The soldiers in the back ranks then closed in, spearing the chariot drivers from the sides and rear. The terrifying charge of the chariots had been completely neutralized. Now came the decisive moment. The fight on the right flank and the failed chariot charge had drawn more and more Persian units away from their center. That gap Alexander had been working to create was now wide open. This was the moment he had gambled everything on. Forming his elite companion cavalry into a tight wedge formation, with himself at the very tip, Alexander wheeled and charged directly into that gap. It was a thunderous, all-or-nothing assault aimed at one person, King Darius III himself. The shock of this charge was immense. The Persian infantry in the center, who thought they were safe behind their cavalry, suddenly found Alexander's best horsemen crashing into their flank. Panic spread like wildfire. Darius, seeing the fearsome Macedonian king and his elite guard charging directly at him, lost his nerve. He turned his chariot and fled the battlefield. Just like at the Battle of Issus, the king's flight shattered the morale of the entire Persian center. They broke and ran, and the heart of the Persian army disintegrated. But the battle wasn't over. While Alexander was winning a spectacular victory on the right, his left flank under Parmenion was in serious trouble. Parmenion's forces were being overwhelmed by the sheer weight of the Persian right-wing cavalry, which had even broken through and begun looting the Macedonian camp. Parmenion sent a desperate message to Alexander for help. Here, Alexander faced a critical choice. He could pursue the fleeing Darius and potentially end the war in a single day, or he could turn back to save his army. This is what separates a good general from a great one. Choosing loyalty to his men over personal glory, Alexander abandoned the chase. He wheeled his companion cavalry around and crashed into the rear of the Persian right wing that was attacking Parmenion. Caught between Parmenion's phalanx and Alexander's cavalry charge from behind, the triumphant Persian right wing was utterly annihilated. It was a brutal, decisive action that saved the Macedonian army and sealed the victory. With their king gone and both their center and right flanks destroyed, the rest of the Persian army dissolved into a full-scale rout. Alexander's gamble had paid off spectacularly. The aftermath of Gaugamela was staggering. Ancient historians claim the Persians lost tens of thousands of men, while Macedonian losses were in the mere hundreds. While these numbers might be exaggerated, the result was undeniable. The Persian army was shattered beyond repair. Darius III would later be betrayed and killed by one of his own governors, and Alexander would march unopposed into the heart of the Persian Empire, capturing Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis. The Achaemenid Empire, which had dominated the known world for 2 centuries, had effectively ceased to exist. The Battle of Gaugamela wasn't just a military victory, it was the moment that truly created the Hellenistic age. Alexander's genius lay not just in his tactics on the day, but in his understanding of psychology, his careful preparation, his ability to adapt, and his incredible personal courage in leading the decisive charge. He didn't just defeat an army, he dismantled an empire by forcing his opponent to react to him, creating the opportunities he needed, and then striking with unstoppable force at the decisive point. It remains one of the greatest tactical masterpieces in all of military history. So, what can we learn from this incredible story? It shows that with brilliant strategy, unbreakable discipline, and courageous leadership, Even the most impossible odds can be overcome. Alexander didn't have more men, more resources, or better weapons. He had a better plan and the courage to see it through. He understood his enemy's mindset and used it against them, proving that the mind is the most powerful weapon of all. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Battle of Gaugamela. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content about incredible moments in history, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps us create more videos like this one. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure into the past. Let me know in the comments what historical battle or event you'd like to see covered next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.